Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about how child custody is not fair, or family court is not fair, or whatever part of this process you want to plug in there. It's pretty much not fair, right? And I think this is kind of a difficult concept for most people, especially at the beginning of the process, because we really see the purpose of the justice system as exactly that, to dole out fair results, right? Fair decisions. And so when that doesn't happen, it can be very bewildering in this process and you can just feel really lost. And I think the closer you are to the beginning of this, the worse that is and the more disillusioned you probably kind of feel. So I want to kind of dig into why this is the case, that things aren't fair and that really isn't how the court looks at things, and help you understand why that's true. And then we're going to talk a little about how this can kind of help you and hurt you, depending on how you choose to deal with the fact that it really isn't fair. So the good news is that you're correct. It isn't fair. I'm not going to argue with you on that. Fairness does not come into the equation. Before we dive in, as always, let me remind you, if you're listening to me on or watching me, I should say, on YouTube, don't forget to hit like on this video if you like the content, and also subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast, same deal. Please rate and review me and also subscribe. Now, listen, guys, my stats people tell me that 70% of you that are consuming this content are not subscribed. If you're watching me on YouTube, 70% of you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel. If you are listening to the podcast, 70% of you are not subscribed to the podcast. Okay. Now, look, I put out a lot of content, try to help you guys, do everything I can, try to show you all the love I can through this. I know that this is a difficult process, and the way that you can help me and kind of return that love is to subscribe. Okay. So if you're listening to the YouTube or the podcast, please, please, please subscribe. If you're listening to one and not the other, go check the other one out and also subscribe to that. Okay. That helps me even more. You can help me twice. You have two opportunities. So let's talk about the whole fairness thing. What happens is we become really frustrated by the unfairness of this, and it almost becomes like the principle of the thing, right? It's, this is unfair and people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and they're not listening to me, and they're not following up on all the things I'm asking them to, or they're not looking at all my evidence, or they're not, whatever, pick your poison of what that person isn't doing. So whether we're talking about the judge, whether we're talking about your attorney, whether we're talking about your ex, whether we're talking about a therapist, a custody evaluator, an attorney for your children, whatever that expert person that you're dealing with is, if what you're communicating to them is, look, this is unfair, and on principle, like, you should be doing more, or you're not doing your job, that kind of thing, what happens is you sort of create enemies for yourself in this process, because then you become one of those people that gets labeled as difficult or problematic, or not taking responsibility for your part. If people aren't listening to your side of the story, so to speak, then how can they even make a decision that's in your favor? So the way to get someone to listen to you is not by accusing them of everything that you think that they've done that's unfair. As the old saying goes, you get more flies with honey. I can hear you almost on the other side of the video, right? Like, it shouldn't be this way, right? No, in a lot of ways it shouldn't, but it kind of goes back to, let's say that you're pulled over by a police officer, okay? In that moment when that officer is writing you the ticket or whatever they're doing, they're in authority, right? You don't get to decide to, well, this is unfair, you shouldn't have pulled me over because I wasn't doing anything, I'm just going to drive off in my car. What happens if you do that? You get arrested, probably, right? Probably they follow you and arrest you because now you're leaving and you didn't have permission to do that. And so in that moment that you're in, the officer is in authority, and the expectation is that you comply with that authority, right? And this is sort of the same thing. Like when you're in this process, these people are the authority around you. And so you have to be complying with the authority. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't mean that you can't present your evidence and that you can't advocate for yourself and all those things. You just have to be careful that the way you advocate is not by attacking other people and telling them how they're not doing their job, because that's, again, not going to get you the result that you're looking for. Again, what courts, what experts, what all these people want to see is you taking responsibility for your part, no matter how small or big that may be. Even if it's big, even if you've really screwed up. Let's say you just did something royally screwed up. I've had clients that have, driven drunk with the kids. Like they got pulled over, and yeah, that's a big screw up, right? But again, it's still recoverable. It's just that the court wants you to take responsibility for those actions and take steps to make sure those incidences don't occur again, that you're doing what you can to ensure the safety of the children. Now, does the other party need to take responsibility for their part? Of course, but you can't make them do that. And if you take responsibility for your part and they don't take responsibility for their part, then that helps you, right? Then you're making progress. But if you are just standing saying how they haven't done this or they haven't done that, or they're alienating the kids, or they're, doing all these things, and that's your only narrative is the attack of them, then what usually happens is you get labeled as not taking responsibility for your part. I can give you all these lists and pointers and things to do, but sometimes the practical application of that in your own situation is hard to see and hard to wrap your head around. And partly because this is emotional, right? What's more important than your kids? For most of us, nothing. For most of us, our kids are probably the one people in our lives that we would lay down and die for, right? And so it is a very emotional issue, and it's difficult. It's difficult to talk about, these situations and these concerns in an objective way that isn't attacking the other parent. And it really is an art. You have to learn how to do that. But it is the key, in my opinion, to succeeding, particularly with child custody experts, particularly when we're talking about evaluators, therapists, minors counsel, those types of people. You really can't go in on the attack, not the attack of that person or the attack of the other parent, either one. In family court, they are focused on what? Best interest of the children. Okay, if you're in this process and you don't even know what that term is, you need to go out and Google it for your state and start getting an understanding of it. And look, maybe you have an attorney, maybe you don't, whatever. You as a person involved in a parent in family court with custody issues, you need to know what best interest of the child is in your state, and you need to understand it, because that is the lens that your family court judge is coming at this case through, not through the lens of fairness. When we're talking about other areas of law, the court is looking to bring in some sort of justice or fairness to the process. And let's face it, these are the types of law that we typically see on TV, right? On shows. It's a criminal proceeding. It's a, personal injury. It's that type of thing where one person did something to somebody else and the court's trying to make that whole, right? Family court is a whole different can of worms, because in family court, the court is not there to decide who did what to whom, or which parent is the better parent, or any of those things that, again, get back to kind of that fairness component of it. What the court is there to really decide, their big overarching thing is what is in the child or the children's best interest. And once they determine what they think is in the children's best interests, everything kind of flows from that point. So that's why we go in expecting fairness or justice, and we come out on the other side of it realizing that they didn't take fairness or justice between the two parents into consideration at all, really. I mean, most of the time they're just not even looking at that at all. They're looking at what do they think is in the children's best interest, and that's the lens they're framing it through. And even if that outcome is unfair to parent A or parent B, that's kind of collateral damage of not having an intact family. It becomes, well, okay, what is in the children's best interest, and what the court believes is in the children's best interest will then tend to override fairness of the parties. And then we get upset because we feel like it's unfair, it's unjust, and then sometimes we get reactive and we take that out on the people around us. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people that are accusing or attacking the experts in the case, be it, again, minors counsel, the evaluator, therapist for the children, all these different people. And all you're doing is creating a more difficult situation for yourself, because that tends to snowball. It's like the more difficult you become to deal with, the less they want to talk to you, the more reactive you get because they're talking to you even less. They still want to talk to you even less because you're getting worse, and it just builds on itself and becomes a snowball effect. So you have to be able to kind of suck it up and remember that you get more flies with honey. That's my moral of this episode. You get more flies with honey. Okay. So you really have to find ways to cope with that unfairness. I have group programs. I do one-on-one coaching. And a lot of times the group programs are really helpful in dealing with this particular issue, because you come into a situation where you have other people that are going through this same kind of thing. And it helps. It helps to process it. It helps to move through it. This is a grieving process. None of us had kids to sign up to be with them some of the time, right? That wasn't the goal. So it's very, very difficult. And you're right, it isn't fair much of the time, but you have to understand how to use that in your favor and how to be able to frame things in the context of best interest of the child so that you can succeed in your case. Okay. If you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page. You can book a time to speak with a member of my staff, learn more about my services, and how I might be able to help you on this journey. See you guys next time.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.